for our viewers at home, like how would you describe your aesthetic and your style?
Sindy Sinn is an illustrator and designer whose work has become instantly recognizable in music and pop culture. He's created bold, heavy-hitting artwork for global names like Disney, Spotify, Blink-182, Fatboy Slim, and Queens of the Stone Age.
I think the kind of artwork that I make is deliberately handmade, deliberately has like happy accidents, and like it's got imperfections and wobbles that I think make it interesting. Like the way I fit everything together is kind of like if you put jelly beans in a jar on a hot day and they kind of glued together a little bit. I never worked as hard in my life until I worked for myself, because you have shit to prove. If you actually are brave enough to commit to going full time with it, you'd be amazed at what you can produce with that time and that energy and that focus and the like hungry desperation. I love what I do. I don't actually really want to scale that bad. I don't want to have a team of artists doing the fun shit for me. When I think of taking agency, I think of like not just floating, not just like being a stick in a river that just like ends up falling off a waterfall.
How much of being an artist do you think comes down to just a sense of obsession? This episode is brought to you by Wick Studio. Sindy, you've worked with Theo Von, Blink-182, Disney, Spotify, Fatboy Slim, Young Henrys, Queens of the Stone Age, just to name a few.
Yep.
All of which I love. And for our viewers at home, like how would you describe your aesthetic and your style?
My style has always been based around music. Music and like kind of booze, I guess, but mostly like kind of music and good times and shit like that. Like my aesthetic kind of comes from like kind of gig posters, Mambo, like that kind of like all the heavy metal artwork and shit like that. Plus like, you know, kind of like like the old cartoons and Goosebumps books and stuff like that. It's this melding pot of influence. So that's kind of what my style has become, is this kind of creepy corporate monsters that kind of make their way into stuff. But I guess like I'll try and articulate the answer of like.
Well, can I make a point on a few things I've noticed? And
yeah,
again, I never like to do this because artists have their definitive ways of which they like to come across. But I think looking at your work, there seems to be these like intense blasts of color, but the way you balance color is quite interesting. Everything kind of feels heavy and weighty and slightly disturbed, but also comic book-esque.
Yes.
So there's a nice like amalgamation of things that maybe have inspired you. And I think it really has its own unique style. When I see merch, when I see murals, I can immediately just go, that's your work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think like my kind of, when I think about like putting together a particular design, I have like a bit of a screen printer mind. Like I think of the layers of color. So I'll be like, okay, so the wall's black, and then we've got all this, you know, white bits of artwork, whatever that might be. Plus then we're going to do one more layer of a highlight color. And so we're only doing 2 colors on a black t-shirt or something like that. So therefore I think of the same.
Right, because on a t-shirt, you're limited to how expensive it is based on how many layers, how many colors you use.
Yeah, I mean, every color you add to a t-shirt design adds another screen. They have to make another ink color that has to be mixed and added, which you could do infinite. But really, there's something kind of creative and cool about the challenge of just using 2 colors on a black wall, for example, or a black t-shirt or whatever it might be. And so kind of limiting the color palette means that like, oh, the eyes have to be red now because the rest of the artwork is white and red on a black background. And the black obviously is not a color you've technically used. And that's how a screen printer would think of like the base color as being a part of the design.
Okay,
Does
so
that make
the walls
sense?
are part of the design,
Yeah.
as is like a t-shirt, like the black on the shirt should be the black in the character and so
Correct.
forth.
On a black t-shirt, you wouldn't print black because there's already black there.
Of course,
so you're kind of working around that. But I think that like I often, like all these projects you've mentioned, each one has their own creative challenge that was at the time was like, okay, so like Theo Von was a good example of like, I'm a big fan of his comedy and I was excited for the tour. And when I heard that I got to put together artwork for it, I was like, the brief was, you know, he's quite self-conscious about how you draw certain parts of him, or he's, you know, the logo has to be this, or the Rat King was really a point they wanted to kind of push. And there was this, that, the other. Every project is a little bit different with what hoops and obstacles you have to jump through. It's not always my expression of my vision for the particular project, you know, because it's like you have to kind of make sure you honor the brief, and like at the same time, during that process, I try and like wiggle with the rules a little bit and see what I can get away with. But I guess like it's funny because like I think a lot of artists struggle with their particular style. Finding a style or a tone of voice can be quite difficult, especially like if you've got too much freedom in a project. It could be overwhelming. Do you know what I mean by that?
I know, yeah, it's almost like you can over-design or you can over-constitute or over-complicate or overuse assets.
If someone says we want a cat holding a record and a cocktail and our bar name across the top, you're like, I've got it. But if someone says, do us a T-shirt, it might take you 1,000 T-shirts to get to that particular version, you know? So you have to kind of, I like to give them a couple of sketches and to kind of feel out the process. It's really good to kind of have a couple of emails backwards and forwards to kind of get a bit of a feel for them. I'll go deep through their brand, pull the whole thing apart, make sure that I'm kind of honoring what they're about, their background, their message. If they've got like a little secret tagline in there, like for example, Theo, you know, in the artwork, there's like a brick wall behind him as a rat. And I've included lots of little hidden messages on the brick, you know, like it's been kind of graffitied on there and stuff, which means that like when him and his team see the artwork, they're like, oh, this guy gets it. He understands us. This is awesome. We love it.
What is it like working with clientele like that? Because obviously there's a particular brief, things that they're concerned about, maybe mistakes other artists have made. When you're in the mix with this, how do you make sure that you're breaking the rules in a way that allows you to kind of have flexibility, but then also honoring the brief?
Well, I mean, because they're all different. Sometimes the brief can be incredibly shit, and you almost can read it and be like, I'm a fan of this, and that's not the brief. Like, that's not, as a fan, that's not what I would want to see, you know? So sometimes...
So like someone in their marketing department put a list together, be like, I know Theo.
Yeah.
I could kind of figure this out.
It could be cool to come to, like, I like to present them with like a couple of concepts and often include a bunch that they haven't thought of. And even if they've said, hey, we want one T-shirt, here it is. Yes, I will sketch that up and get that ready for them to see and to kind of start talking about. But I'll also go, I think we should do this. I think this is a better T-shirt. I think this is a stronger design. I think this is a bit smarter sometimes, but like you obviously have to word that nicely so that you're not being insulting. You don't want to tell clients what to do, but as a person who designs a lot of T-shirts and does a lot of custom artwork for people based around their brand, you can quite easily sort of see like, oh, you're worried about things that don't matter. Like let's just have some fun with this. Like a T-shirt isn't necessarily your brand. Same with a mural. It's not your brand. Like this is kind of like a remix of your brand. You know, we're having fun with it. We've taken what's on the website and what's customer facing, and we're just like mixing it up like it's a bit a psychedelic version of that.
It's like a collab. So like the same way, I don't know if you saw the collab between like Tiffany & Co and Nike, or like Off-White and Louis Vuitton. It's like they bring interesting parts of both brands
totally, and
together.
That can be really hard in that meeting if one team doesn't like let go of a certain thing. Like if Nike said it has to have the tick right in the middle, you might be like, oh, this is going to be a bit clunky. You actually need people to kind of let go a little bit sometimes, and then you can kind of steer the ship in a way but you can always kind of steer it back if you need to. You might get some sketches and be like, we want to see a bit more of the brand in there or something like that. But I guess like the brief can be, some brands will come forward with like a really, really detailed brief of what they want. And that can be quite restrictive sometimes because you're like, this is exactly what you wanted. Like, is this right? Like, are the bricks in the right spot? Whereas when they're kind of a little bit hands off, that's when you get to kind of go and have some fun and come up with something wild.
And I like what you said there about like the client gives you a brief, you show them something close to the brief, and then you're like, this is what you asked for. I put this together. Just want to show you this. However, I've also worked on something I think is better, because then you're like basically, fitting their appetite, right? With what they've requested, but then offering an alternative, which when it's executed might look way more impressive than the original.
I think so, yeah. I think it's like using some like initiative, and it's almost like going like, it's like, yeah, I guess so. Like I don't like, it's the only way I can describe it is being like sort of like not caring about the brief. So they'll give you the brief and you have to obviously honor that, but then also at the same time being like, what would I do if I could do anything? Like what would I, if there were no rules for this, what would be the best T-shirt? Like what's going to sell the most? I'm using merch as an example, but like what's going to sell the most T-shirts to your audience? And it may not be what they've asked for. And like a good example of this that probably sounds more positive, I guess, would be, I just did a project for a bar in Salt Lake City called The Green Room, who were like, hey, we want to hire you. We love your stuff. We want these 2 T-shirts. first one is this. It was literally a cat holding a record and a cocktail with our bar name across the top. The second T-shirt is going to be a record as a character, like the old mascot, kind of Disney kind of man.
Yeah.
We want to get one of those. And like kind of if you just kind of do some sketches, let's see if we're into it. Like, what's your process? And I was like, sure, this sounds good. Here's the two you've asked for, and here's a third, which is a portrait of the front of their bar. They have like a really nice, clean look in front of their bar. And I'd put like an old school boombox speaker out the front of it, like they're having like a street party, like a kind of like a rad, the kind of spot you'd walk past and hear a party and be like, want to go in there. Because when I looked on their website, everything looks like there's a party in here, come inside. And so I just was like, I think this is it. I know I'm quite good at drawing buildings and shop fronts and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm just going to chuck this in here and see what they think. And they were like, we want all three. Like, this is perfect, rad. It's like, cool. We didn't have to fight about anything. It was all creative. It was all, it was basically just about being like, I think this is the best solution to what you want, which is you want to sell some shirts to people that like your bar. Like, let's do that. And then
there's like a bug you get when you create something and you see someone's eyes light up because you're like, oh, I got it. It's almost like a little puzzle you solved.
It feels good to send that email with that extra design attached. It's like, man, I live for this shit. This is good. Like they're gonna, like I wish I could be a fly on the wall on their end when they open it and be like, holy shit. Because I mean, sometimes what happens, I'm at a point now in my career as an artist where I feel like I sometimes skip sketches and go straight to like, this is good to go. Like I understand you, I understand the brief, I understand what you want. Here it is. And we'll deliver like near final artwork. I don't mind. It doesn't take too much more work to kind of design something tight than it does. I mean, it does, but like part of me likes impressing them with like something really, really strong to see in the first round of emails because I feel like it sets up the. I'm trying to like. I guess like a thing that sometimes happens is if I send someone a really rough sketch, I'm trusting them to imagine what it's going to look like. And I've had this happen before, which is to send someone a pencil sketch and they're like, yeah, but it's going to be blue, right? And you're like, yeah, but it's a fucking pencil. So like you see what, like this is just the floor plan.
They don't have the ability
They're like,
to
no, but I
of
wanted a
film
house.
yeah.
And you're like, no, but this is a blueprint of the house. It will stand up, like they don't, it's like almost like you're trusting them to kind of fill in the dots. So sometimes sometimes I'll pick a particular part of an illustration and I'll draw that like it's finished and the rest will be rough as fuck. But I do like to give them a like, this is another whole side thing, but it's like I like to give them a little bit to kind of play with because I do notice that like a lot of clients like to have some input. They want to play with it. They want to be a part of the creative process. They want to, they want to think about things and come back with some thoughtful notes and stuff. They want to be included. So whenever I get the gist that that's the kind of client that I've got, I'll try to give them something to kind of play with, which is good.
We have a kind of an idea or concept here at Rival, which is like there's like 4 types of clients. There's the pilot, the co-pilot, the attendant, and the passenger.
100%.
So like the pilot wants to control everything. The co-pilot wants to be involved, almost like they're the decision maker. Then the attendant just wants to help.
Yes.
And then the passenger's like, you deal with it. I'm here for the ride.
Yeah, man, 100%. You get like the kind of client that wants to go like, oh, can we just jump on a call and just brainstorm like some ideas or something like that? And my response to that now is like, no, I don't really want to do that. I guess because that sounds like something you should do. Like that sounds like something you should do in your own time when you're feeling creative, and not try and force that into like a half an hour phone call with me where like we might not land on something. Like we should both go and brainstorm some shit, and you might think of something really cool in the shower, and like I don't want to be in the shower with you. So like just like write it down and like email me, bro. And when I get to it, we'll open it and we can talk about it. But I guess like, and then there's the other kind of client who wants to come and sit behind you and kind of like watch you kind of do things, and maybe wants to like be a part of the day-to-day, hour-by-hour process. But I mean, luckily with the studio, we don't have too many people coming in. We kind of just lock the door. But I guess like this is, you'd have this with any industry, anyone that works for themselves, but like you do tend to find the red flags straight away. And not necessarily just red flags, but I recognize the kind of client you are. I recognize what's going to happen. I recognize this, that, the other. And you're able to immediately answer that. You can answer those questions before they've asked them, kind of thing, and kind of be like, oh, I can tell you're going to be concerned about. It could be something like, it's something as simple as, oh, they want to make sure when you look at their Instagram, you're like, oh, these guys want to see process sketches that they can share. Like they want a photo of a hand holding a pencil, sketching the artwork so they can share that, saying a teaser of, oh, we've got some new artwork coming, or we've worked with this local artist to produce some artwork. So you'd be like, hey, just so you know, included in this whole project is going to be some like process stuff.
Yeah, I think oftentimes when people begin their journey as a freelancer or in the creative space, they think it's a conveyor belt, but it's more of a haphazard warehouse where anything can kind of go in any direction at any given time. But I just want to like slightly touch on like some of the framing around like pricing and like perception and like how to really, I guess, set oneself up as a freelancer, as a creative. Before we really unpack that, I want to know, how did you begin to open doors at this level? So when you're working with big bands like Parkway Drive or Fatboy Slim, like how did this really unveil itself? Because I imagine there was a time where things weren't really clicking the way you might had hoped, but then all of a sudden you had a reputation and the word getting around town. So how did you open doors at this level and really start to catch these types of clients?
It was really slow. To be like on the inside, it was a slow and steady, like laborious, a lot of like time wasted on projects that I could do so much faster, so much better now. It was a long, slow thing of working with local bands, working on local posters for, little events here and there. I used to do monthly posters for a couple of venues where they'd send me everything that month and I'd come up with a different thing, and it was always a lot of work, and I was very slow, but I loved it. I was having so much fun. And whenever a job came in, I was like complimented, like, this person likes my work enough to hire me to make some artwork for them. Like, fuck yeah, let's do it. Like, so I kind of gradually kind of pick and choosed what I started to work on. And over time, the bands slowly got better and the bands got bigger, and the bands introduced me to another band that needed some artwork, and the bands, again, they put out an album and they want some album artwork, and the album goes well. And then they're like, dude, we're going on tour. Can we get some shirts? Can we get this? And it very, very slowly built up from working with my mates who were in local bands to the local pub, to the local, hey, the guy here, he actually runs like a t-shirt brand around the corner. And, hey, I actually could use some artwork for my local, literally like a plumber or something like that, wanting some artwork. And then someone sees that and they're like, hey, we want a shirt. And it was like this little spider web of like each job led to another job. When I look at my portfolio, I think of like each of the clients and each of the projects as being like a giant kind of spider web, and how does that kind of connect to me being
right? So this client like introduces to these people, and this band project fled out this way.
Yeah, for example, like the new bar in Salt Lake City, the Green Room, who I was just talking about, like I will use them as a connection of a spider web to reach out to more locations in Salt Lake City, saying like, hey, I just did some artwork for this rad bar down the road. Let's do some artwork. Let's do some shit together. Like, this would be really fun. And a big part of my brand has really been the outreach.
One thing I want to unpack here, and I think this might be an interesting way to look at it, is like okay, for example, you're self-taught, and I think when people are self-taught, they tend to look at things that they're obsessed with, or they tend to pull inspiration from. Now, you mentioned Goosebumps. You mentioned like band posters and Mamba. Like, how did this path shape you? Like, if these were like different clumps of clay kind of like molding you, like how did this all kind of really honestly come together?
For a long time there, I was working, just doing whatever I could. I was a roadie for a long time. I worked with a lot of bands on tour and just trying to, doing every odd job that I could to get through. But I was always drawing on the side. I'd always go away with a sketchbook with me and just fill it with skulls. I'd fill a page with like melting, warpy skulls. For a minute there, I worked in a call center and just spent every second of the day on the phone, just drawing monsters and just slowly coloring it in and having just doing it for fun.
You were obsessed.
It's all I wanted to do. And when people asked me to design something for them or to draw something for them, it was like the biggest compliment of like, holy shit, like the fact that you would trust me to do that, sure, like I'll figure it out. I'll do anything to figure it out. I think if I had have gone to an art school, I would have rebelled and just gone, fuck this, and just tried to take everyone to the pub and try to sneak out. I think the fact that I had to actually figure out how to do each problem as it came up. So if in something like Adobe Illustrator, like designing something as vector artwork, as soon as you find yourself in a bit of a problem, you're like, I have to Google this and I have to go down a massive 2-hour rabbit hole trying to figure out why these anchor points aren't connecting. But when you do find an answer, you're like, I've solved this problem now. And now I've got a keyboard shortcut that like solves that for the next time that happens. And like, I feel like I've now had every problem that I could possibly encounter with the design, the design process.
Well, that's such a good point, because design is problem solving. A lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people think it's just draw something and you're like, hang on, like what's the problem I'm solving?
Exactly.
And then if you have a tool bag of tricks of like all these different things you've learned through problems you've been faced and then overcome, you start to like stack the combinations together to get the outcome.
I think the fact that I had to sort of figure it out myself meant that I actually learnt it. And I think if someone had have given it to me on a printout saying,
right, this is the process.
Today we're going to learn about with anchor points, I would have been like, boring. But when it's a problem that you're like, man, I'm trying to actually finish this so that I can send this off so I can go to print, so that, this band's going to have some shirts for their tour. You're like, I have to figure this out. So, and you also just learn learning a little tiny solution, like something very, very niche inside Adobe or Illustrator or your Wacom tablet, or how you're all set up. Like fixing a little tiny thing, like, for example, like the settings on your Wacom tablet, then the tablet that you literally use to draw into the computer. Even just like, there's so many settings in that. There's so much sensitivity in that. Like, not to mention the weird coordination of drawing on a flat surface in front of you whilst looking at it at a different dimension, if that like a different aspect.
I played with one when I was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
I found it too weird.
As opposed to an iPad where you're drawing straight on the screen. So like a tablet might be down here on the screen. Anyway, like figuring out how I like to work and having everything kind of set up so that every time a job came in, I wasn't trying to like reinvent everything. I wasn't experimenting with my style. I was going straight to the design process, straight to figuring out what the design was going to be and how we were going to make that as strong as possible, rather than trying to figure out software or trying to mix paints and come up with some new color. It was like, nah, we're going to not experiment with stuff. We're going to get straight to building, if that makes sense. If you're going to build a house, you're not out here like making bricks. You buy the fucking bricks and you make the house and you make it. That's where the creativity comes in. You're not like clogged up in details of like little tiny things of trying, like, again with the style. It's like, I already know how I like to draw things. How do I draw something that's going to be really punchy, really clever, and really, how do I simplify this as much as possible so that we can be super confident in like the simplicity of what I'm handing over? And that actually can be quite a weird thing. It takes a long time to make something look simple, because the more simple a design is, the more every little line actually matters, because you see every little detail.
That totally makes sense, because you're taking something like, we also have this debate here with the design team, because it's like there's a point by which you over design. There's a point by which you just go off a cliff and you do way too much stuff. The stuff that screams, that's really loud and really pops, is like usually the simple things.
Definitely, and I like that. This is here's an argument we could have forever, which is like, what is the best artwork? And like it doesn't really exist. Like the best artwork is kind of a myth, because like, is it more complicated? Is it more complex? Does it have more colors or more lines or shading or something? Or is like or is just like whoever can kind of deliver the message the cleanest way? Is that like the challenge really isn't to be complicated, which I think when I first started, I used to add lots of stipple and lots of lots of bits of shading, and I thought that by having it being quite complex, that it was better. And over time, I've realized that just being really confident with like it's kind of like a word count. If you can say the same thing in less words, not a specialty of mine. I'm a bit rambly sometimes, but like if you can deliver something as punchy as possible with as few colors and as few lines and shapes as possible, it's almost like you've summarized it to its pure,
You've shown restraint, but you've also shown confidence. And it has room to breathe, and I don't know. I'm
a big fan in like confidence and simplicity. So being able to like deliver something that is incredibly punchy, that nails the brief without being overboard or like wasting a bunch of frills that don't actually deliver anything to
almost
the
like you're trying to hide
the outcome. Yeah,
your level of confidence.
And that's kind of become my style. Is how do I like dumb this down, I guess, without it being dumb. You know, I want it to be, how do I make this as simple as possible so that the artwork is still rad, everything is still there, but I'm not overworking the concept. And like you were saying about, you can over design something. When that happens with a project, I'll notice, like, you know, if you're getting into various versions of artwork, when I go back to V1 of the artwork, it still has that kind of like sketchy kind of punk rock feeling sometimes, of like, a sketch can have real energy because it's got like impulse, like it's been worked on quickly with a rough hand. It hasn't been like over considered. And that same thing can happen with over designing by like too many people involved in a design process, like the design by committee kind of thing, where you suddenly start trying to please everybody. Do you know what I'm talking about? With like adding, what if we did this, or what if we, you know, the demographics actually say that we should. And it's like, sometimes it's like, man, just do a flaming skull, put your band name over it. We're gonna be sweet.
Was there a defining moment where rubber really hit the road, where you worked on a project and, you know, 1 minute, like you said, you're at a call center sketching skulls and monsters. Next minute, you're designing a T-shirt for a big band.
Yeah, I remember the day I like left my job and I went full-time freelance as an artist, because it was incredibly terrifying. I had about 10 jobs lined up at the time, and I was like, I think I'm going to be okay. Like, there's going to be some money, and but I'll now have time to work on these projects. I was really curious what it was going to feel like to suddenly spend time on something that I'd always squeezed in, if that makes sense. To like I was always working on projects at night. Like had a day job, and I'd come home and I had like this old wooden desk, and I had this little grey lamp. And my thing was, when I come home, I'm going to make dinner as fast as possible. I'm going to get a beer and a coffee and a jug of water, and I'm going to get some snacks. I'm going to get all my shit on the table, and I'm going to turn my lamp on. And when the lamp's on, I'm going to work on it. And I'm going to like switch on. When the lamp's on, I'm on. And the lamp was like this kind of like weird thing that I had of like turning creativity into a muscle as something I have to do. I'm going to stay awake all night working on this shit. I'm not going to waste time. So the light's on, we're on, let's do this. And then suddenly it'd be 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd try and cram 2 hours of sleep before work or something, and I was useless at my job.
Now take me into that, because a lot of people debate flow state. So some people wait for inspiration to hit them.
Yep.
How do you stay in a constant flow state, or do you not even agree that that's a thing?
It's definitely a thing. I don't know if I necessarily feel flow state, but I get in the zone. Like, I get in the bubble, and there are different kinds of bubble. Like, I would break up a project into like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 different chunks. Like, when you're first looking at what you got to do, you have to brainstorm, like, what are we actually doing here? Like, what is the best idea for this? So I've just finished the poster artwork for Blink-182's Huntsville, Alabama show, right?
Okay, take me right through like phase 1, from the brief right to the execution.
The brief is Blink-182, here's the show details, here's a few things they're trying to avoid because they try to go through phases of artwork. They didn't want to use the kind of skull. They got like a happy face. They didn't want to use the happy face, and they wanted to avoid like overuse of the bunny.
Yes, I've seen the bunny a lot in their merch.
So they were like, we've just done a few bunnies. Oh, actually, it's not even so much about like not liking something. It was probably more about them being like, we've had a few too many bunnies. So I was like, that's cool. We'll dodge all that. And then they go like, we need sketches by this date and final art by this date. So
okay, so they give you the deadline. They've given you the brief, the things that they don't want you to do.
And I know it's a poster. So I have the spec. I have the spec, the client, and some of the details. I know where it's going to be. Obviously, I've never been there. But I was like, cool. It's an American poster for their one of the like it's on the Missionary Impossible tour.
Wow.
So they were like, cool, go for it. And you're like, rad. So the first thing I usually do in that situation is I'm like, fuck yeah, we're working on a cool project. Let's do this. I'll chuck on some Blink-182 on the, I'll chuck some Blink on the stereo, get a bit of vibe going for myself, maybe in the earphones if there's people around. We kind of, work that way. Then I'll create like a folder of reference, and that'll just be like, what's everything Blink's put out over the last year of artwork? Like I just want to see some of the stuff so that I'm not doing something they've just done. I want to make sure I'm doing something that's the next step so that it all evolves, so that I'm contributing to the future as opposed to more of the same. I went deep researching the venue and the city, and Huntsville's often called Rocket City because there's NASA and there's a bunch of like rocket sites there and a bunch of cool things. So I was like, man, we got this.
So you're looking around for like landmarks.
I'm trying to find
and
something.
culture and the zeitgeist and what people know
Correct.
it for. Yep.
The context of this is that the audience are people who like Blink-182, probably very similar to myself, who listened to them when they were growing up and are still like, fuck yeah, I like this band. I want to go and see them now. They're bigger. They're tighter than ever. But they're locals. For them, that's a local show, right? It's like me going to see the Hives tonight. Like, it's the same thing. So what I wanted to do was to honor the city they're playing in without it being like super cheesy, right? So the sketch that I put forward to them was a Grim Reaper riding a rocket, and it's like shot off out of the earth, and then there's like planets and aliens and shit kind of going on around them. The sketch that I sent them, the actual like Grim Reaper and a part of the rocket, I drew quite tightly in the style that I wanted the whole thing to be, and the rest was like a crayon sketch, like a left-handed like idiot kind of sketch of like rocket here, flame here, planet, like, you know what I mean. But I'm like, here's a bit of it drawn quite well, so you can kind of get a flavor. So like, let's just say 10% of the poster is kind of like finished, and you're leaving the sketch so that they can fill in the rest with their imagination. Correct. It's like as if I'm not trusting them to fully imagine what it's going to look like, but I'm showing you a little glimmer of like, just like, here's one slice of the pizza has been fully cooked.
Clients want it all. A slick-looking website that can run their business and scale with their success. Wix Studio is built for that. Plan out your client's whole site in seconds with AI-powered site mapping and wireframing. Then when everyone's on the same page, jump into the creative, starting off in Figma or in the Wix Studio editor with super precise layouting tools like Grid, Stack, and Flexbox. Go above and beyond the brief with no-code animations, custom CSS, and built-in business solutions. And make your whole vision responsive in a click. And there's zero need to break a sweat when clients grow fast. A dynamic CMS with global design settings and reusable assets lets you turn one page into hundreds. Design smoother and deliver sooner. Go to wixstudio.com.
So I jump in and I finish the rest of the artwork. I put Blink on in my headphones. I get in the zone, right? And for something like that, I literally am like, cool. I go in that morning, go into the studio. I know I'm working on it that day. And I'll have a usual morning, drop my kid off at school, walk to the studio, get a coffee. Hey, how you going? Hey, a bit of this, bit of that. But then I sit down and it's like straight in the zone, and I know I've got until 4:30 that day to just like completely smash out this artwork. And the idea being that I finish it, but it might take a second day or it might take a third day depending on what the project is. For that particular one, it was already laid out. So I'm not thinking about the creative process of like what goes where. I'm like looking at a rough circle thinking I have to turn this into a planet. It's not.
Yeah. So you kind of
there's like the layout. There's the layout brain, and then there's the actual like building it brain. So it's kind of like if you had to think of it like architecture versus building the house. So it's like at that point I'm like following the plan.
So like this makes sense to me. So like let's just say we're building a house. Stage one is like you send a draft.
Yeah.
You kind of like roughly sketch. Like
yep.
The house is gonna point in this direction. It's gonna have a balcony. It's got all the things it's about to have, but it might not be the perfect execution. You send that out. They give you a sense.
But I can kind of imagine it.
Yeah.
I'm not like sending it to someone else where I have to explain I know that I'm going to be building this as well. So I know that it's kind of my shorthand for things. So like Saturn is like a circle with a fucking flip with a hula hoop around it.
Sketching it, that's done. So you're kind of laying out a draft.
Correct.
And then you finish a portion of it so they can see the actual fully fledged execution. So then they can fill in the blanks themselves.
Yep.
And then you wait for a response. You go back and forth.
Yep.
And then once you get a green light, you just roll it out.
Correct. So then I like execute the rest of it. It's like today on the cards is just doing this, and that is almost like turn my phone off, get fully in the zone, load up a couple of podcasts, load up some music. I'm like you in that like I like lots of background music. Sometimes I'll have like a podcast and music slightly dimmed underneath it. I want like that, like I need to bombard myself with stuff so that I just, I don't know what it is. It's like a weird, working in silence is nearly impossible for me sometimes.
Oh, same.
I don't know. You got to be crazy to do this shit. But I reckon like if you don't enjoy the process of of actually working on something like that, then it's going to be really hard job. You know, like if you don't enjoy the slog, it's that. I mean, that's when I'm talking about this. Like there are some days where I don't feel it. There are some days where I find it really hard to concentrate. Not that I don't feel it, like I don't want to do it. I mean, like my focus is gone, and I'm like, okay, I have to. I mean, today's an admin day. Let's do it, emails or something like that. And I'm like, it's just takes a minute sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, I can get myself straight in that zone once everything's there and there's some music and something, I'm ready to go.
Now, you have a brilliant analogy to explain the concept of value. And you talk about the $150 project versus the $5,000 mural. Why do people assume higher price equals better quality before anything's even done?
One of the hardest things, I think, as an illustrator artist is putting a price on your artwork because, and this is a thing you hear, I've spoken to lots and lots of people who are artists, especially trying to figuring it out. And a thing that comes up is how do you figure out your pricing? And actually, like if you had to think about it yourself, if you were putting up a painting at home in the entrance to your house, do you want to like skimp on that? You know, like how important is this to you? You know, if you were presented with 2 options, are you going to choose a $10 painting or a $10,000 painting? And whatever you just imagined, the $10,000 painting is better because the $10 painting uses shit materials and it was rushed and there was no real thought to it. And that guy is doing something else that day, you know, whereas the $10,000 artwork has been done with intent and premium materials and it was delivered and it was wrapped and it's, you know, there's like a level of care that I think goes into that, and the price can literally translate to that. But I think that like the pricing yourself as an artist is hard because, especially for me, I'm a people pleaser. You know, I want to when I'm quoting, I'm like, oh, that seems too high. I should bring that down so we're mates. You know, don't think that I'm trying to take the piss, you know, or something like that. But I guess like I now know how long things take me, and I now know the value that I can bring. If it's a t-shirt, I know that we're going to sell shitloads of t-shirts, and I'm not a cost. I'm a blip at the start, but you're about to make 50 times that back. So don't even worry about that. Whereas with a mural, it's like, cool. How much money do you spend on the sound system for this room, or the paint for an entire building? It's like, why is a mural suddenly a cost and not actually like investing in an asset into the background of your business? You know, actually, this is going to create the vibe for anyone that walks into this room. Not to mention it's a backdrop for everything that you do. Not to mention it makes you guys cool, you know? So like, I guess like trying to figure out the sweet spot of how much time can I spend on it, and reciprocally via that, there's like, what price can we put on this artwork? How can we value this? And I don't think, it's taken me a long time to realize that clients don't value cheap artwork. The output's not necessarily the same if something's been rushed and if you're worried about moving on to the next thing too fast for an artist.
Is it about the framing of helping a client realize or appreciate the fundamental value of something beyond them fixating on price?
Yes. Well, you'd be surprised because the bigger a client, the more they've got their shit together, the less they kind of care about the price. If you kind of come back with something reasonable and you go like, this is what I think this is worth, and this is how I think this should be done, you lay out a bit of a blueprint for this is the process for this particular project. Suddenly they'll be like, yeah, it's a shitload of work and you're going to do a good job. Let's do it. Like, great. You don't have to worry about talking about it for too long. Whereas I think like it's usually a client who maybe doesn't have too much budget or is worried about the wrong things, that maybe is worried about trying to save money on artwork, which it's a luxury item at the end of the day.
So now with usage, like if I were to think of a metaphor, and I heard someone share this where they said, let's imagine you're Dr. Dre and some up-and-coming artist who's unheard of, some artist who's up-and-coming and unheard of says, hey, I need you to help me make a beat for my first track. Yep. The distribution of that new artist is unlikely to go viral. Whereas if you had someone like, let's say Eminem, who's like, hey, we're about to drop our 8th studio album, I'm double platinum.
Yep.
Then you're looking at the impact of the artwork versus I'm just going to charge them the same rate.
It can be it can be like quite a complicated thing, especially to a client that this isn't necessarily part of their vocabulary. And it's like an analogy that I sometimes use. And okay, here's one. an apparel brand who make rad like retro style boardies. They wanted a repeat pattern of like skulls and daggers and cool shit, right? And they were like, we want to hire you to come up with like this rad aggressive pattern of your style. You know, we'll put your name on it, blah blah blah. But we want you to design this pattern and we want to print it on board shots. Let's talk about that. I was like, cool. Here's my rate for that kind of artwork. I'm going to supply you with a print ready PDF plus some process content of what it looked like coming together, maybe a bit of a time lapse, maybe some sketches, whatever. This is the rate. And they go, but we want to own the artwork. We want to buy it outright. And you go, you don't need to buy it outright. Just print the shorts. Like this is all factored in. I've got the design fee plus a usage for you to print the shorts. Here we go, you're good. And they go, no, but we want to own this. To have to explain to them that like it's like an analogy that I sometimes use is like a house. Like you can rent a house or you can buy a house. And if either way, you can live in it. You can invite your friends over and have a party. You can eat dinner. You can sleep. You can shower in that house every day for as long as you want, as long as if you're renting it, as long as you're paying, it's good. It's your house, but you can't renovate it and you can't sell it. And like you can't add a bedroom or a pool. And if you want to fucking paint it, you have to call me because it's mine, motherfucker. But if you buy it, it's going to be more expensive and you can do whatever you want with. And I think sometimes clients think they need to own it just to use it, and it's an unnecessary cost. There are other times where they think maybe by buying it, they're getting it exclusively. And maybe I might be like, dude, let's just add $1,000 and I won't sell this to anyone else. But like, it's still ours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be removed from this. I don't want you to like turn this into another. I mean, if you own the artwork, you could take that pattern and collaborate with Coca-Cola with your brand and I have nothing to do with it. You know, that could be the focus part of a massive campaign that I've got nothing to do with. It's fine as long as they've kind of mentioned up front, hey, we want to do some crazy shit with this artwork and we want to buy it off you so we can do that. In which case I'd probably be like, sure, fine. The payment structure for every project is slightly different. The Blink-182 poster design, I get paid per sketch. So they, you know, we work together fairly regularly, me and their record label and the management team. They like every time I submit a considered sketch, so if I send 2-3 sketches, I get paid per sketch. It's not a lot, but it's enough that I get to actually spend some time coming up with a concept, putting some time into delivering something that they can present, makes their job easier because I've spent time making it look decent and not just a bit of scrap paper or something. This is actually like the first step in the project.
You've ideated and done a sketch and you get paid per sketch.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, without taking, I'm not going to send them like 10,000 sketches, but like, like I'll send them like 2 or 3 or, or sometimes just one if I'm like, this is it. Like, let's not fuck around. And then once they've approved the final design, there's a flat rate, which is, an amount that we've worked on in the past. Win-win. We're all happy. Plus I get 10% of the printed posters from the show, plus a designated shout out from Blink-182 on the Instagram. So Blink will promote the posters that are available for that show. They will then say extra posters are available from @Sindy Sinn, and I then on my website I'm posted in the mail 10% of the screen printed posters that they produce for that show, and I get to sell those on my site for whatever I want. And so say they produce 300 posters for the event, I get 30 sent to me, and I get to sell those for, let's say, $100, or if they're signed, $300. I don't know, whatever. If they're foils or like a limited edition print, even more, whatever. And I get to kind of maybe sign them myself, do like a little artist print run of like 1 of 20 of whatever I've got, 1 of 30, whatever it might be. Some artists don't like this format because when you actually think about it, it really does sound like we're going to pay you with your own art. And that can confuse artists as to what they're signing up for because they're like, no, money. We want money for job, don't just send me your shit, But actually to get those posters from the band and a shout out that you have the overflow, that's super powerful. So now I have 1 million fans potentially coming from their Instagram to my Instagram, my website to buy the poster that's hopefully available or whatever, the stock inventory, whatever, sell as many as you've got basically. But now they join my ecosystem, my website, my universe, where they can see my other shirts and my other prints that I have for sale. You can build a little cart. It doesn't have to be just the Blink-182 poster. I've got other posters there. So they can, they might be able to buy some other things, whatever it might be. I then have to take care of the postage, the fulfillment, and the back end of that. Plus, that person's now joined my mailing list and is a part of my little VIP ecosystem. So that the next time when I do a poster for the Hives or for the fucking Stray Cats or for wherever it might be, I can go, hey, guess what? Mailing list, I have more gig posters. You like that one on your wall? Do you want 10 just like it for other bands? There's more coming. And having people in my ecosystem is incredibly powerful because I think in the long run, whilst I love drawing shit for plumbers, being able to produce my own rad merch and ideas and prints and shirts and canvases and whatever it might be is super, super powerful. And I can live off that for the rest of my life if I'm considered and I look after that crowd and I kind of don't take the piss. I treat those people like gold. I don't waste their time with crap. I just do one email with, here's all the things I have available at the moment and some of them are pre-sale. These are limited and you have first access to this stuff. I want you to feel special. Because a big part of my brand has now become pre-sale t-shirts and making things limited edition. I want to, not only do I want the people who support my artwork to have access to it when it's available, but I want people who weren't there at that time to squirm and to not be allowed to have something because it's sold out. It was a thing that I printed once. It was posted out, made to order, and you weren't there. You missed out. Sucks shit. Join the mailing list because there'll be some more coming.
Yeah.
And I never reprint t-shirts. I don't do that shit. I want to move on. I want to do more custom stuff. It not only does it show complete, like, you're special, you have this design no one else does, I'm not reprinting it, but it also is a good challenge on myself. I have to keep coming up with these ideas. I have to stay fresh. I can't just have one design that sold well and just keep selling it. It's like some of my best shirts or best selling shirts, I get 20 emails a week, people saying, hey man, have you got any beer devils? Have you got any of the, I've got one that's everything's going to be okay. And it's like hands with the fingers crossed, like it's a lie, kind of everything's going to be okay. It sort of looks like it's a lie, but it looks like fingers crossed. It's a nice double meaning. It got worn on a Netflix TV show. And so anytime someone, I get like a number of emails every week for people being like, hey, I've just been watching somebody feed Phil. You got any of those t-shirts? I'm like, nope, sorry, dude, they sold out a long time ago. But if you join the mailing list, you'll find out about the next shit that's available. And that's kind of where the Blink-182 stuff goes. So those people, that poster will be on my website, probably even at the time this comes out. So like that'll be, by the way, there's logistics in that as well, because I've seen other artists go through this exact same process and their website's not ready. So when they get the shout out from the band, they don't have the poster available.
They can't capitalize
and they
on
might
it,
be
yeah.
saying, well, I haven't got the posters yet. And it's like, well, dude, you should have put some. You have the artwork, like make something, put it up there, and explain. I'm waiting for the posters to literally arrive from the show, But I've seen it be missed, and I've seen people kind of like kook that opportunity. And like the thing is that like when something like the Blink artwork goes on my site, I want to make sure I've got 3 or 4 other things that are going to suit it. So I might do like an alien t-shirt, or I might do a canvas of a UFO like zapping a skeleton or some shit and make that a couple of grand, and that's sort of a bit more of a prize piece, and kind of try and build out a little bit of a range kind of around it so that it's not just one thing going out there. It's like if you're going to come to my site to spend some money, I want to give you some real shit to buy.
Yo, my name's Dane Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then, I started my agency, Rival. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral, and Rival makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about Rival.
Rival is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.
So how much do you think of selling your work comes down to you having great conversations and connecting with people versus talking about business? Like what ratio? Like is it 80% hanging out, 20% business? Like how do you balance that?
I mean, mostly the conversation and getting to know someone and like being personable, being a mate, being a good guy, being trustable, turning up on time. Like all of this shit's important. Like if you build if you're a trustworthy person and you turn up to have a chat or a beer or a coffee or whatever, and people are like, oh, he's like, I think we can do this. He's going to make it work. I think like that's a really good foundation for a working relationship together on a project. Whereas sometimes if you come in on the just worrying, for me personally, if I talk about the sort of business side of stuff too much, firstly, I'm not an expert in it. I only really know what I know, but then also like, I don't find it fun. I want to talk about the fun shit. That's not the fun part. The fun part of the job is coming up with what we're going to do together, how awesome we can make it, making the cool shit, sending it to you, getting you excited, you selling a fucking 1,000 t-shirts. The biggest problem we're going to have is where to park your fucking yacht with all the shirts you sold. Like, fuck, who cares? The rest of it's not important. But like I put myself out there a lot, and I think that's been a big advantage it's been a big tick for the success of what I've had, is that like people don't have difficulty finding me or reaching out to me. And there's been, I guess, like if I had to think about like growing pains over the like 10 years, there's stuff I'm not good at. I'm not good at my accounting, so I have an accountant. If I'm working on murals, which sometimes they can be a massive project that might take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm on site sometimes. That time while I'm painting, I'm not necessarily on emails, so I have someone who looks after my emails for me. And she's fucking great. And like she does a great job just managing the traffic of like, this comes in, hey, don't want to miss this. And it means that like at the end of the day, I can just focus on like 2 or 3 emails that are really important. Because when I'm working, I'm not also on emails or doing admin. I'm so engrossed in what I'm working on. It means that if someone's calling me, I may miss the call because I'm so engrossed in this. But when I'm working on their project, it will be the same, and I'm not distracted by anything. But it means that how do I scale my business? It's really hard to scale me, other than having a bunch of kids and teaching them how to draw just like me, so that one day in the future I can sell them as artists. How do I scale myself is by outsourcing all the shit that I don't want to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when you're outsourcing, what you're saying is essentially like the stuff you suck at, outsource it.
Yeah.
And the stuff you're great at, double down.
For sure. And it means that the stuff you've outsourced gets done way better anyway. Like my accountant's better at accounting than me. And same with like I've got Dave Cook, who makes my website for me. Like he's fucking great. Like he did a better job than I would have, for sure. And it's like, man, you outsource that stuff. And like it means that any time you have a problem or you need help, you have a team around you. And like that's kind of where I am now, is that I have a great team of suppliers, whether it's screen printers or, when I'm printing t-shirts, I can recommend 5 different blanks. When it comes to, whatever it might be, I'm not experimenting or trying to come up with every little thing. I can kind of jump straight into obviously there's stuff you have to look up. If someone wants to do a specific type of product or a specific thing, or, sometimes you just have to dial in and find that. But a big part of, because this is kind of what I find when I listen to like business podcasts or business, anything that kind of is trying to teach you about how to take over the world and scale. I'm like, I don't actually really want to scale that bad. I don't want to have a team of artists doing the fun shit for me. I love what I do. What I want to do is have a team around me who manage all the shit that I suck at and could do better, and that I think that like having them support what I'm doing so that I can every day come in and just know what I'm working on and work on it is the best. It means that I can also maximize my time of like, man, I'm not like wasting too much time throughout the week on emails and on things that bog me down that I know take me a long time and take up a lot of, like a lot of brain space. I know that like right now I'm scheduling it so that every Friday I'm working on something for my website, and a print or a shirt or something cool, so that every month or two I can put up a fresh drop of stuff. This is my approach is like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything kind of thing, of like obsessive on the important shit. And I know what the important shit is for me and my process. And that is like breaking out the crayons and getting stuck in, as opposed to every little bit and bob that goes into the project.
One of my favorite artists is Todd McFarlane, and I have a collection of his comics. And for those that don't know it, Todd McFarlane is kind of the creator behind like the new Spider-Man experience that we saw in the comics versus the stale old Spider-Man. And then he invented Spawn and like Carnage and Venom and all these other characters. But like he had this cool concept where he talked about how like he just wants to do cool shit, and then anything else he hates, he outsources. But like he was like, he said publicly, like he's like, I am a hypocrite. He's like, my attention is all in like the creative execution, and I'll tell people that that's all I obsess over. But simultaneously, he's like, another part of my brain is like, all I care about is like, are we winning? Are we making the numbers? Are we making the money? But he's like, the full circle is like, I want to win at the money so I can come back and do the thing that I love.
Yeah.
A lot of artists get stuck with like one side and not the other. How important is it as an artist to really have a good commercial brain, to constantly be thinking about, okay, I want to do cool artwork and create stuff, but I also got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep the boat floating. I mean, if there's no money coming in, like it's pretty hard to do anything, right? So I think you do need to pick and choose who you work for, what projects you work on. That's a huge part of it. And like, especially as you start to build momentum and more people want to work with you, you have to be able to pick and choose what's important. And sometimes saying no to something means it does free up time to either work on something that is more important or worth more money-wise, or value, like just in terms of like, oh, this is a good project. Like there are projects that I'll do I'd happily throw myself at any project. I don't care what the budget is. I have to do this. There are other projects where you're like, fuck yeah, dude, the budget on this is sick. Like we can actually properly spend some time doing an amazing job on this. We can capture the content. We can show the world, hey, look at this that I can make. Look what I did. Plus, if you can keep some money rolling in, you have to be able to do a bit of both, unfortunately. And like, and there's lots of work that I've done that I haven't put on my portfolio or on my Instagram or anything like that for no reason other than I just don't need that. It's just not really on brand, and it might be a bit kind of corporate. Like I've got a big mural in the Australian Stock Exchange building down in the city, and it's like, it's real corporate, It's got a lot of brand values, and it's got a lot of kind of corporate jargon and shit in there, and it's, it was cool. It was cooler than what they needed, but it wasn't as cool as what I would put out there. I'd tell people I've worked for the Australian Stock Exchange, but I'm not going to show people the mural necessarily because I don't know that it's like that. It's confusing for people to see that. Here's a thing sometimes, right? If you're an artist and you put yourself out there, you could go down to the local. Let's say you've just started, like you've decided I'm going to be an artist, and you walk down to the local cafe and you say, I'm an artist. I'm a local artist, and I want to make some artwork for you. And they go, you know what? We've got this big side wall here. Can you paint some big teacups? You're like, fuck yeah, let's do teacups. I can do that. You go home, you figure it out. You present them with some sketches. They pick one. You work out some, a rate and some details, and they approve everything. They pay you. You paint these massive teacups, and then down the road, a gelato store goes, dude, you painted those teacups? They're sick. We have a gelato shop. Like we want some big gelatos on the wall. And you're like, yeah, cool. And then further down the road is like a daycare center, and they go, hey, you're the teacup and gelato artist. Can you paint some fairies on the side of our building? And you're like, yeah, I could paint some fairies for sure. Years later, you're going to go like, I wanted to paint motorcycles. What the fuck? Like, why am I the teacup fairy fucking what? I'm a cupcakes? What?
Yeah.
You're like, I wanted to do motorbikes. I want to do flaming skulls. I want to do this. It doesn't have to be that. It could be, man, I want to paint things that represent music. I wanted to paint guitars. I wanted to paint this. I want to paint flowers. It could be whatever, right? And that's where the importance of having a website where you can, or an Instagram or a portfolio that you actually can add to, as well as, piece of work. Here's a big brand you might know. Here's a thing. Here's something cool. But then here's a bunch of my own shit that steers the ship into the kind of work that I want to do. And you can actually kind of direct the kind of work that you're going to get, that people see, and they're going to associate with you and what you like to do. And they're going to go, let's get him to do the motorcycles. I actually the motorcycles is an example of a time where I was working on a lot of like coffee stuff, and I was getting stuck in working with these coffee grinders, coffee brands, roasters, whatever you want to call them, and whatever, all a little bit different. And I was like, that's enough. I want to do some edgy shit, and I really wanted to work with Deus. And so I put out all these motorcycles. I did a range of shirts that had like one of them was like a skeleton riding a motorcycle doing a wheelie, and he was blindfolded, and it said Death Wish and all this cool shit. And then a couple of motorcycle brands, not Deus, but a bunch of motorcycle brands got in touch and were like, dude, let's do some shirts. It's like, you're not Deus, but I'll take it. Let's do it. So either way, I was like, this is cool. And it did steer the ship, and it worked. And it was because I was putting out.
So you're making artwork that align with the types of brands you would like to work with?
Yes.
And signaling, hey, I can do motorcycle stuff. And then boom, a motorcycle
You could
brand.
say exactly the same thing about a marketing agency who are working for a fruit. You could be working with a fruit and fruit vegetable, any sort of like a fruit box, or you could be working for like a local grocery store, or like you could be doing all this like eco stuff, and you could be doing this, that, the other, all this like friendly stuff, and you could be like, oh, we want to do funny, crazy shit. I actually just want to set things on fire, or I want to explode things. And so what you need to do is add that, and you need to make that a solo. You need to initiate that. You can't just, that brief will never come. No one will ever ask you to set a car on fire. If you want to do that, you need to go and get a car and set it on fire. It's the only way. You need to create the kind of work that you want to do before people ask you to do it. No one's going to read your mind and assume, oh, you know what, the fucking the little agency on the corner who has the fruit boxes, you know what they want to do? I reckon they want to set an old Datsun on fire. That'd be sick. You can't set a Datsun on fire. People who drive Datsuns get real mad about that stuff. They want the parts and stuff. But I think this is a big part of like the illustration thing, and I think anyone doing creative work really should be adding a significant portion of their own initiated work, because you can come up with the brief, you can come up with the audience, you can come up with all this stuff, and you show it to people. And if people aren't seeing it on your Instagram, find someone who you want to show it to and fucking email them. Yeah. Show them, go there, print it out. Like if there's a radio station you wanted to do some artwork for, I'm thinking of like something personal like that I can think of. If there's a radio station you want to do some artwork for, do some artwork for the cafe downstairs, and do the artwork.
Get in the proximity.
And do the artwork. Like I did the artwork for the cafe and I sent it to them, and I was like, hey, you're rad, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of cool people are drinking coffee out of your shop. Let's do some shirts. P.S. I've already done it. It's attached. And they were like, holy shit. And then they were like, cool, this is rad. So they did a run of shirts. And then the radio station upstairs has since gone like, hey, a couple of people downstairs are wearing your shirts. And we were thinking, we've actually got this campaign coming up.
You're like, funny you ask.
I was like, yeah, it's so weird. So weird. But that shit doesn't always pay off. And you can waste a lot of time. I mean, on free stuff is what I'm trying to say. Because again, I'll chalk this up as one of my wife's great ideas, but if you're going to do something for free, and when I say if you're going to do something that is completely self-initiated, where you're like, I'm just going to do this and present to them, I'm going to give it to them, to be able to measure that is kind of really important, and to be able to go, I'm going to write this off as a marketing cost. I want to work for Liquid Death. I'm going to design a shirt until I think it's perfect, and then I'm going to send it to them. And I'm going to introduce myself with the work, and the proof can all be in the one email. Hey, I think I could do a rad job for you. P.S. I have. It's attached. And not only have you got to come up with a brief your way, you've avoided their shitty, maybe Liquid Death's a bad example, but you've avoided a shitty brief where you could work for a brand you've always wanted to work for, and then they go, hey, you know what we want you to do is we want you to do some artwork on top of some cupcakes. And you're like, oh, fuck, that's not what I wanted, So to actually kind of break the ice with your own brief does actually show you can break the rules before there are rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
And I think sometimes people don't necessarily know what they want until they see it. And sometimes, same with following a brief, you might draw it exactly the way they want it, and then they're like, yeah, it was boring. You were right. Yeah.
And now, something that you do, and that's a part of your process, as you were explaining, was you film yourself sketching, you film yourself bringing the idea together, albeit sometimes a simple time lapse or something that's a bit more intentional. How much do the clients or the brands care about that part of it? Because I see a lot of artists that don't do that creative reveal part. They just focus on the finished product.
I mean, it's the nature of social media now, is that you have to, you kind of have to, you have to sort of be a little bit of a dancing monkey sometimes. I try to keep it really simple and just show the process of how I landed on what I've landed on, especially for designs that have resonated really well with people. I think if I did it for everything, it would be overkill. Sometimes all you really need to do is see the finished result and you're like, great, nailed it, got it. Other times it's like kind of fun to kind of see the process behind it and coming up with like, when I'm painting now, I'm running GoPros and like thinking about time lapses in the back of my head. So it's like this like extra sort of part of the project that has to be considered, simply because of the age we live in now, where that's, social media and, more people might see a video of me painting a mural than ever actually see the mural. That could be the reality. And for an I'm thinking of
because I just had a funny thought. It's not like Picasso was sitting there like painting and then also being like, hang on, let me set up the tripod.
Yeah.
Let me capture what I'm doing.
5 ways to do a painting. And he's like doing this sort of shit.
And he's like talking to the entire Renaissance community at the same time. Like
he was focused.
It's a weird thing because I was having this moment today where like Cam and I were like researching like guests for the pod, and I'm like in the middle of a conversation with him, and then a part of my brain is like, by the way, Dane, like hit record on your phone and like put their phone in the corner and like record this moment as it's happening. So like there's this weird fatigue that's happening with creative types where they have to do business, they have to record what they're doing as they're doing it, they have to tell stories as they're doing it. It just feels like there's this monumental pressure to nail not one thing, but like 3 or 4 things really well simultaneously.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that pressure?
Well, I don't put pressure on myself I don't think of it as pressure, but I think it's definitely like an extra thing to consider, but I don't put pressure on it to be perfect. Like, I think the kind of artwork that I make is deliberately handmade. It deliberately has like errors, and when I say errors, like happy accidents, and like it's got imperfections and wobbles and bits of human character to it that I think make it interesting. Like the way that I draw letters is more like they're kind of melted shapes, and the way I fit everything together is kind of like if you put jelly beans in a jar on a hot day and they kind of glued together a little bit, like I want everything to kind of slightly kind of touch, perfectly balanced with the gaps between it kind of thing. But I think like because I make that kind of handmade, I'm going to say organic, crafty kind of artwork, it suits the kind of process of like, well, the artwork looks handmade and I'm going to show you that I handmade it because I think that's interesting. And people are weirdly mesmerized by watching time lapses of designs come together, especially like you're figuring something out. Like trying to draw a face is probably the best example for me of like, if I'm trying to draw an incredibly simple face, to one little line on the mouth might take you 20 goes to get it right. And on the time lapse, it's like trying to figure out the mouth, and then suddenly you've nailed it. And it's like, don't fucking save everything. Like that's the one.
Well, the brain's like fixated on this type of content because I was explaining this to a room of people yesterday. Like when you make content, create a problem. Because then people are like, are they going to solve it? And then it's like a little cliffhanger. And it's like, even if the content sucks, they're going to hang around to see if it works. Because I joke, like, remember when we were kids, we'd watch midday movies when we would stay home sick. Because you're like, I wonder what happens. So if you can mesmerize people or confuse them,
getting them hooked onto like I couldn't draw the mouth. I mean, I don't know if it's super exciting necessarily to like fixate on a little detail like that.
But if you're an illustrator, you would, or if you're like considering hiring you, they'd be interested.
I'll often put out the time lapse after people have seen the finished result. So I think therefore there's like sort of an element of like. I appreciate that watching someone draw who can draw or paint who can paint is incredibly therapeutic. Like it's very mesmerizing. Like I find my process for murals, for example, I get everything approved digitally first. And then once the sketch is on the wall, I'm in the happiest place I can be because I have the paints are all custom color matched for the wall. I'm not there like mixing paints like a mad scientist. It's ready to go. And I get to pick up my nice brush with my nice paint cup and I'm just like filling in the paint by numbers almost, which undermines what it is a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, it's just like, it's really nice. And I think to share that is really good for like social media and stuff like that. Cause you can get, people are like, dude, this was fun to watch. It's been actually fun painting canvases lately. I haven't done canvases for a long time. I've recently started doing canvases. I didn't do them for a long time. And putting them on my website, like framed, ready to go for your house, the office kind of thing. they're so nice to film because I could get real tight on just like a little part, and I can just show me like, you know, on a devil's face or something, just getting the face details just right. And it could be like 2 or 3 hours worth of work sped up into 10 or 20 seconds. But at the same time, it's like the paint kind of dries and it levels in, and it's really like whoosh. I mean, I like watching other artists do that, so that's just kind of why I think to do it for my own work. And really what I want is for someone to see that and to have more attachment to the artwork, and then like ideally buy it, or, you know, for a canvas. The more you can sort of sell someone on the canvas artwork, the more they can kind of imagine it in their house, and they might. I'm thinking from personal experience, when I've seen artists sort of tease like new canvases coming up, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that finished one, but it looks sick, and I think I want that.
Now, as an artist, like how important is it to make sure that you don't get too stale, right? Like I see artists do this all the time, or creatives or content creators, they get stuck in this kind of like conveyor belt, and they're like, oh, this works. How important is it to think about the next thing, or to stretch themselves, or to almost get out of that comfort zone and to do something new?
I think it's massive. I think being able to get out of your comfort zone as a creative is really important, because you can very easily create like a system of just like, I know how to do these 2 or 3 things really well, and you just stick to that, and you never try a new thing, because, or even if you did, maybe it didn't work once. You have to like really want it and kind of stick at it sometimes. I'm thinking of my own example, what happened with me, which was when I first put myself out there for some live art. There was an event called Secret Walls, where I'd been to some. I thought they were rad, and you'd go there and you'd watch artists. They had a 2x4 by 2.4 meter white canvas on stage. It was at the Oxford Art Factory, 2 of them side by side. It was an art battle. And you have 90 minutes. You can only use black ink, no pencils, and you have to create an artwork that roasts the other artist.
Wow.
And I was like, I was like, all these artists are on this stage. Everyone's watching them paint. I was like, I really want to do that. I emailed them and I was like, I really want to do this. And they were like, fuck yeah, dude, you're on. So I did it, and I was shit scared. But I think but I turned up and I did it. And whether or not, like at that time in my artwork career, I was still kind of figuring out a lot of my style and a lot of like what I was good at. And I think in the end, I was a little bit of a coward with the concept, and I didn't want to. I was going to do like a big portrait of his mum and like fucking roast him that way. And in the end, I was like, I'm not that confident yet. I'm going to, nowadays I'd fucking draw his mum all over again. But I think I think like being able to put yourself out of your comfort zone means that you try new things, and for me, it's been murals that have gotten bigger and bigger. One of the first ones I did was literally at Mary's in Newtown, where we'd done a rad shirt design, and they were like, "Can you paint it here?" And I was like, "Yes, I can." Going home and like Googling how to paint mural, like watching YouTube videos on how people do it. And
so you hadn't done a mural yet?
I'd painted big, and but I'd done it. I wasn't painting something that had been a pre-approved design.
I get you. Okay, take me back into...
I could draw, I could illustrate. I knew how to design shirts and also, posters and all that sort of shit. I knew how to paint. I could fill sketchbooks with paintings and drawings and stuff. I knew how to paint canvases. I knew how to do all this stuff, but I didn't know how to turn that into that, right? Like how to put this there, right? So I went and got a mate of mine. His mum was a school teacher, and had one of those like big old light box projectors, like the glass ones with the mirror and the light and the angled mirrors, right? Like Stone Age projector shit, right? I had to go to Officeworks, and I got it printed on some acetate, and I like plugged it in and I set it up and I pointed it at the wall where I want it. The cool thing about that is you can force the perspective. So I set up the projector where the front door is, as opposed to right in front of the wall. I set it up next to the front door, so when people walk in, they're like, it's like it's looking at them. You know what I mean? Even though it's kind of the angle is off. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
yeah. You're messing with perspective.
Yeah, and it means every photo of that venue, it's perfect. Like it looks spot on from where you would take the photo of the bar. But I got through that, and I had this big clunky projector for a long time, and I'd be painting bars in Melbourne, and like going on the plane with it was like going on the plane with a TV, like one of those old box TVs. People thought I was nuts. Anyway, it broke, and I was like, okay, I think it's time we get one of these cool little Epson ones. But over time, the murals have gotten bigger and bigger, and suddenly I'm on scissor lifts and cherry pickers, and suddenly and like out of my comfort zone could also be like animating designs where I'm like, I think I can do this. Just give me like a shot and a day to like see if I can animate this and like having a crack at it. And like it's like it's the kind of thing where it's you have to kind of take a punt on yourself to kind of see if you can do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not for you. You know, like if you are a creative and you want to kind of step up to the next big thing, you have to sort of try it first. And if it works, rad, take a photo, tell everyone. But if it doesn't work, maybe something was wrong. Maybe something didn't click. Maybe it looked clunky. There's a million ways to kind of do this. And your comfort zone isn't necessarily, it's specific to you. Like, what are you afraid of? And like, I think every artist would have this, and maybe no one knows that artists feel this way, right? So when I did my first ever solo exhibition, so like, I think it was like 12 artworks and paintings on the walls of things that I'd kind of put together and thought was cool. It was called Wasted Life. It was all about being drunk, and it was all these different things, different demons and devils, all just being drunk and sloppy and stuff. I thought it was rad. And it was sick. But about a week before the exhibition, I had done all the tour artwork for Peking Duck, who were playing at the Horden Pavilion. And I was standing there at the merch desk. There was a long line of people lining up to buy my range of shirts that I'd done for them. And I was standing there just, you know, like proud of myself, being like, fuck yeah. Like, these people are fans of the band. I've nailed it. Look at this line. Like, this is proof that, like, we've done the right thing for the right audience. We've nailed it. But I wasn't at any point there. I was like proud of myself, but I wasn't like, I was sort of, I guess I was kind of like standing at the back admiring, but there was no spotlight on me. Like, it wasn't about me. No one was coming and asking me what I thought. No one was interviewing me. I was completely anonymous, right? I was just some dude there just like perving on the merch line for a minute there, right? But like a week later, I'm getting ready to go to my first solo exhibition, and I'm at home, and suddenly I'm shit scared. And I'm like, the fuck is this feeling? Like, what? I'm a cocky motherfucker. Like, why am I crumbling? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't want to go tonight. Like, what's wrong? And then I was like, oh shit, the spotlight's on me. Like, now I don't get to hide behind a band or a client or a thing. It's like, oh, this is me, and these are my feelings on the wall. Like, fuck, that's so terrifying. What am I doing? What a trap. I put myself in this situation. I did this. I organized this. Fuck. So like that feeling of like suddenly being the spotlight of attention and having to talk about my work when previously just the work and it was there, like I could hide behind that. Suddenly being at the face of the audience, like, this is rad, and you're like, you can see me? Like, what do you mean? It was quite vulnerable, and so I think for me that was a real comfort zone, because I hadn't put my work out there that way, and I was like, no one's going to buy my work if it's just got my name on it. It has to say a client name, or it has to be through someone else. And through that, I was like, I can sell that shit all day long, but just my own. This is like having a party and no one's there yet, you know, and you're like, is anyone going to come to my house and party with me, or am I a huge loser, you know? And then your friends turn up and you forget that stupid thought because it's stupid, and you were just having a little moment, you know? You're being a bitch. Don't be a bitch.
How much of being an artist do you think comes down to just dogged determination, wild curiosity, and just a sense of obsession?
Fuckloads. Well, because like, why would you put yourself in a situation where you're being creative in a freelance way for a living? That is crazy. Like, imagine if you had to go and draw pictures for your dinner, like to pay your rent with some drawings. That's fucking stupid and terrifying, right? But you have to trust yourself. You have to be there has to be something a bit wrong with you to be like, you know what? I'm unemployable in an office. I think the way for me to make my footsteps in this world is going to be doing this crazy thing. And for me, like, I wasn't straight to being full-time freelance. I did it, like I was saying, I did a lot of all-nighters and it was my side gig for a long time before I took I jumped off the cliff of seeing how far it could go. But I think a lot of people, There would be two ways, two bits of advice I would give you. I'd say if you're really good at something and you're doing it on the side and people are noticing it and people are really kind of actively engaging in it, whether it's liking it, commenting on it, being a part of it in that way, or actually buying it or anything like that, actually supporting it in some way, you can either keep that a side gig and that's just a happy little thing that you can do when you feel like it and you're not relying on that for income. You can really test how far you can push that shit because you can go wild with it because you know that you have a job to pay your rent and your bills and you're not reliant on that. The other thing is that like if you actually stop your job and you go full in on your creative venture, you now know like suddenly it's real and you're like, this shit has to be good. I'm not leaving here till it's done. I'd never worked as hard in my life until I worked for myself because you have shit to prove. You're like, if this shit doesn't work, like how embarrassing. like I jumped all in on fucking skull drawings. What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? You went to school, you know?
Yeah.
I did essays on World War II and shit to like fucking turn my computer on and draw fucking vomiting Grim Reapers. But like, if you actually are brave enough to commit to going full time with it, you'd be amazed at what you can produce with that time and that energy and that focus and the like hungry desperation that comes from I only get paid for shit that I finish versus if you do actually just like doing something, I would say just keep liking it and keep doing it because you like it and spend 10 years doing it as a side hustle because like there's no shame in that as well. You know, and I actually think like sometimes you can kill your joy for something a little bit by turning it into a job. Like I know a lot of people who are a lot of guys who are graphic designers who sort of aspire to do artwork and shirts and stuff of their own and sell them on their site and whatnot, but they don't because they come home tired. They're burnt out from being creative for someone else all day. And it's sort of like you just slowly see the light die inside their eyes. And then 10 years later, they're like, oh, I should have done some prints or something like that. And you're like, yeah, man, if you had done one print a month, by now you'd have at least one print, you know? Like you could have been building something really cool. But, I mean, it's kind of like you could apply this mentality to anything. It could be the same as like working out or like going to the gym. It's like if you go to the gym once a week, that's better than nunts a week. Nunts? I'll take it.
We'll take nunts.
But I think, I guess
I get your point because what you're saying is like
you don't have to be an athlete. You can just train and be fit.
You don't have to be like I'm gonna go for the Olympics. You could be like I just like running. So but like in the case where someone is like I wish I could go all in.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's the right time? Because the conversation is always, am I doing this too early? Am I making the wrong decision? Am I making a big mistake?
Yeah.
How do you know when it's the right time to go all in?
Well, you know what they say? There's no such thing as a good time to buy a dog, right? Is what they say, right? So like, there's always fucking 100 reasons not to, right? There's that holiday coming up at the end of, or whatever, But like, when is the right time is really like very, very different for every person. I'd say that like having some savings and having some money in the bank ready to go so that you're not scrambling from the first day is probably a big. Probably a luxury for some people, but maybe like having a bit of savings so that you can just figure it out at first. Also having some clients and stuff ready to go. I mean, for me, for a long time, I had Young Henrys as a regular monthly client, so we were producing a lot of shirts and a lot of murals, a lot of artwork that was ongoing. There are two nice things about that. One is that not only do I get to make a regular income, you could call it, from a client, but second, we work on a lot of stuff really fast because we have a shorthand because we don't have to do all the hand holding that goes with new client, new project all the way through to the finish line. It now is like this bar, like this, want this, do this. Like, we shorthand the whole thing to the point that it's like two dudes like nodding at each other like, yeah, man, I gotcha kind of thing, So you can, but for me, that's massive because then I'm like, I feel trusted, I feel safe. I've got like a safety blanket a little bit, But I would say that you could apply that to anything. It doesn't have to be the creative thing. Like you could have a site. You could work. There's no shame in having a few different lives going on at the same time. Like maybe a weird analogy. I remember knowing guys in bands who would rehearse like 5 nights a week. Like 5 nights a week, right?
That's a
like
lot.
clearly those people don't have a lot of shit going on. Like, what are you writing songs about? Like driving to rehearsal? Like go and fucking do something, you know? Go and crash a car and write a song about it. Go and get your heart broken. Go and travel. Go and like feel something and then make your experience relatable. And you could, this ties in with the personal brand thing as well. As like if you're kind of a bit boring, it's going to be really hard to build a personal brand. And that's not, I'm not saying you're boring. I'm saying go and do some shit. Like if you're an illustrator who kind of likes rock climbing, like start doing more rock climbing and draw it and find the brands that are around that and find an artist, find a climber who's a professional and find, you know, where are those people? Where's that community? And it might be hyper specific. And like, I've recently found this myself. So I really like running. I like long distance running. I'll rephrase that. I fucking hate running. Right? When you're running, you spend every step thinking to yourself,
why am I doing
I hate this. This is shit. I want to stop. But for some reason you keep going and there's like some weird, like sick kink in testing yourself as to how far you can go and how brain dead can I be to like really hurt slowly, you know? But I love it, and it feels good when it finishes. But it's it's a process. But it's kind of a bit like drawing sometimes, where it's like, you know, I was saying like I get in the bubble and like suddenly 8 hours has gone by, like I've blurred. Sometimes that's a bit like running. Like the first part is like the first like half an hour is like painful, and then suddenly you've finished a marathon.
Now, I'm deeply curious, dude. You're a guy with so much agency. You got a ton of energy. You clearly love and are obsessed with what you do. Like, where does this come from, man? Like, where is this? Where are you channeling this from?
I don't know, man. I just really, when it comes together and it clicks, it's the most satisfying shit in the world. And like, I really like the process of like brainstorming problems and like, I like creative challenges. Like my wife and I play this game when we're driving down the street. We play this everywhere we go. Is like there'll be like a corner store that's like for lease or something. It's like, if I gave you that place right there, then here and now, that shop, what would you put there? And you're like, oh, and you like look around and you're like, pizza shop. I'm gonna put like a gang, like, you know, you come up with something stupid. Or you come up with something funny, or like you be like, oh, you know what, this is that corner there. It's near a bunch of, I'm gonna go a flower shop that also has like a little espresso machine at the front. They sell coffees and they make relationships with the people that come by, and they write down their birthdays and they sell them flowers. You know, like we try and come up with little creative challenges for each other and shit like that, which like it's just brainstorming solutions to stupid made up problems. But what happens is I've got an art studio where people walk in the door with stupid creative problems. And then you're like, I can figure this out. And like there's 50 different ways to fix a creative problem. It's not like if you're a plumber, the toilet either works or it doesn't. You know, like, but if you're not selling any t-shirts, there's a couple of different ways to do that. There's no such thing as the best artwork or the perfect artwork. There's no such thing as like any of this sort of shit. It really is like, see what works, try a bunch of stuff, and it's like a really fun way to like inject creative substance and extra bits of interest to your brand. And it doesn't have to cost much money. It doesn't have to be a huge cost. That's why I like the example of merch, because it's actually like you make that money straight back. I want you to get as much bang for your buck out of your whatever you've spent on the artwork. For me, I want to make sure that you get that back by selling that to your audience, and I'll give you everything you need to sell that, whether it's mock-ups and promotion and suppliers. I'll give you everything that you need to kind of just literally just like pay a few people and put the shirts up. We'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, it's not because your shirts aren't right for you. It's because we did the wrong thing. We should try again. And you know what we do? We do a video saying, we are so sorry about that last artwork. It was terrible. You know what? And we've decided to kill the artist. You fucking hire someone else. I don't know. Make some fun content out of it. Have some fun.
Now, I think, you know, something that we'd like to ask everyone here is like, you know, it's kind of the same question, but everyone has a very different spin on it. For you, what does agency mean for you? Like taking agency, what does that mean to you?
like being accountable to something. So like backing it, like being whatever you're kind of doing it with some purpose and kind of being all in on that. And I think you could probably chalk this up as a lot of people out there that just sort of do shit because that's kind of like where they landed. I know people who work jobs they don't really like and they don't really have many hobbies and they go home and cook dinner and have a glass of wine and go to bed, do it all again. I think like taking agency, when I think of that, I go like, cool, man, like what would like make your life more exciting? Like what could you add to that? Like what's a people with hobbies is like such a generic fucking thing, but like do some shit, make something, go and like buy some hardware tools and make some carpentry shit in the garage and like, I don't know, fucking set it on fire when you're done. Who cares? You don't even have to show anyone if you don't want to. But I guess like when I think of taking agency, I think of like not just floating, not just like being a stick in a river that just like ends up falling off a waterfall at the end of it. You know, it's like go and do something with some purpose and some grit and controlling what you're doing. Is that fair enough? I don't know.
Fair enough, man.
I don't think you need to take over the world though. I think there's like a choosing the like people sometimes don't start doing something because they're afraid of like crazy things, right? Like some people I know someone who didn't want to start painting canvases and paintings because they were like what if like I have to do like 100 and I don't have time? And I was like, fuck, you haven't even done one, dude. Like you haven't even done one, let alone finished one or sold one. Like why don't you worry about painting 2 first, dickhead? Like you're so far worried about like a problem that that so few people even get to there. It's like, man, just have some fun and do some shit. I mean, I'd say the same about whether you're an artist or whether you want to work with an artist. I'd be like, man, just try it and just see what happens because like I think it's the same with the brand rules. If you just do the same shit over and over and over again, I don't know. One day you'll die. Who cares?
Dude, it has been a blast. I have enjoyed every minute of this, and I think it's just so fantastic to just see your art in the world and just to know how much blood, sweat, passion, and joy you put into everything you do. My mind is like racing with ideas I have for other businesses we're working on and other things we can do potentially together. But just genuinely, man, like it's so fun to hang out with someone who like is this obsessed with what they do. And I'm honestly just stoked to have talked to you about this, man. It's been a ton of fun.
Thank you for having me. This is rad. This is really fun.
Dude, we have to get you back, man. This has been a blast.
Let's do a check-in.
We'll do a check-in.
Throw another Mentos in the Coke bottle. Let's go.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.